A shared taxi ride in the rain. Two strangers running from their past. One whispered confession that changed everything. I don't want this ride to end. The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday evening. Not the gentle kind that makes everything look romantic in movies, but the heavy, annoying type that soaks through your jacket in seconds. He stood under the small shelter at the taxi stand, watching the water pour off the edge like a waterfall. His day had been terrible. The client meeting went worse than expected, and all he wanted was to get home, change into comfortable clothes, and forget this day ever happened. She arrived at the taxi stand a few minutes after him, pulling a small suitcase behind her. Her eyes were red, not from the rain, but from something else. She'd been crying. He noticed, but pretended he didn't. People deserve their privacy, especially when they're having a bad day. The problem was simple. Too many people, not enough taxis. The city was always like this during rush hour, but the rain made everything 10 times worse. Everyone wanted to get home, get dry, get somewhere that wasn't here. The line wasn't moving. Cars would pull up, people would jump in, and the rest of them would shuffle forward slowly, getting wetter by the minute. After 20 minutes of waiting, a taxi finally pulled up in front of them. They both stepped forward at the same time. That awkward moment when two strangers realize they're competing for the same thing. The driver, an older gentleman with kind eyes and gray hair, rolled down his window. "Where are you folks headed?" he asked. "Downtown near the river," he said. "Airport," she said at the same time. The driver smiled. "Well, downtown's on the way to the airport. Why don't you share? Save you both some waiting time." They looked at each other. Neither really wanted to share a ride with a stranger, but neither wanted to stand in the rain for another 30 minutes either. She shrugged first. "I'm okay with it if you are. My flight's not for another 2 hours." "Sure," he agreed, though he wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea. They climbed into the back seat, leaving a respectful distance between them. He took the left side, she took the right. The suitcase went in the trunk. The driver pulled away from the curb, and suddenly they were stuck together for at least the next 40 minutes. Probably more if the traffic was as bad as it looked. The silence was heavy. Not comfortable, not uncomfortable, just there. He stared out his window, watching the blurred lights of the city pass by. She checked her phone, typed something, then put it away. The driver had the radio on low, some old jazz station that played songs from another era. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The silence was starting to feel weird now. He felt like he should say something, anything, but what do you say to a complete stranger you're sharing a cab with? Comment on the weather. Too obvious. Ask about her day. Too personal. He decided to stay quiet. Then his folder slipped. He'd been holding it on his lap, and when the taxi hit a pothole, it fell to the floor. Papers scattered everywhere. Drawings, sketches, building designs. He quickly bent down to pick them up, embarrassed. "Sorry," he muttered, gathering the papers as fast as he could. "Are those building designs?" she asked, leaning over slightly to see better. "Yeah," he said, still picking up papers. "I'm an architect. Was showing these to a client today." "They're really beautiful," she said, and she meant it. He could tell by her voice. "I love the way you've incorporated natural light in this one. And the curved walls here, they're unusual, but they work." He paused, looking up at her. Most people just said nice or cool when they saw his work. She was actually looking at the details. "You know about architecture?" "A bit," she said with a small smile. "I write about travel and places. I've done a few pieces on interesting buildings around the world. There's this village I visited once where they build homes into the hillside to keep them cool in summer and warm in winter. Traditional techniques, but the design principles are brilliant." Now he was interested. He forgot about being tired, forgot about the bad client meeting. "Where was this?" "Southern Italy," she said. "Small place, most tourists never go there. But the architecture tells you so much about how people adapt to their environment. It's not just about making something look good. It's about creating spaces that make sense for the people living there." He found himself nodding. This was exactly what he'd been trying to explain to his client today, and they just didn't get it. They wanted something flashy, something to show off, not something that actually worked well for the people who'd use it. "That's what architecture should be about," he said. "But try explaining that to clients who just want their building to look impressive in photos." She laughed, a real laugh. "I'm guessing your meeting didn't go well." "Is it that obvious?" he asked, managing a smile himself. "You had that look when you got in the cab," she said. The "I'm done with today" look. I know it well. Bad day for you too? He asked gently. She nodded, her smile fading a bit. I was at my grandmother's funeral. Flying back home now. Well, trying to. I'm sorry, he said, and meant it. Thank you, she said quietly. She was 92. Lived an amazing life. Traveled everywhere, did everything she wanted to do. She always told me that life's too short to play it safe. The taxi suddenly lurched to a stop. Traffic, complete gridlock. The driver sighed and turned around. Looks like we're going to be here a while, folks. Accident up ahead. They're directing everyone through one lane. Great. He checked his watch. She looked at her phone. You'll still make your flight, he said, noticing her worried expression. I hope so, she said. Though honestly, I'm not in a rush to get back to reality. The last few days have been so heavy, you know? Sometimes you just want to pause everything. He understood that feeling more than she knew. His divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Every day since then had felt like going through the motions. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Nothing excited him anymore. Even his work, which he used to love, felt like just another task to complete. The driver turned the radio up slightly. An old song was playing, something from the 70s. You folks mind the music? He asked. It's nice, she said. My wife loved this song, the driver said with a gentle smile. We danced to it in the kitchen while making dinner. She has good taste, she replied. Had, the driver corrected softly. She passed 5 years ago, but I still play her favorites. Keeps her close, you know. The mood in the cab shifted. 3 people, 3 different stories of loss and difficulty, but somehow sitting there together in that stuck taxi, the rain pouring down outside, it didn't feel quite so heavy anymore. She turned to him. So what got you into architecture? Was it always what you wanted to do? And just like that, they started talking. Really talking. The traffic wasn't moving at all now. Red brake lights stretched ahead as far as they could see. The rain kept drumming on the roof of the taxi, creating a rhythm that somehow made their little space feel separate from the rest of the world. He found himself telling her things he hadn't talked about in months. I grew up in a tiny apartment, he said. 6 people in 3 rooms. I used to sit by the window and sketch buildings I'd seen in magazines. Buildings with space, with light, with rooms for everyone. My dad thought it was a waste of time. He wanted me to do something practical like accounting or engineering. But you did it anyway, she said. Eventually. Took me a few years to get the courage. I worked construction first, saved up money for school. Learned a lot, actually, seeing how buildings go together from the ground up. You can draw perfect plans, but if you don't understand how things are actually built, you're just making pretty pictures. She was listening in a way people rarely did anymore. Not just waiting for her turn to talk, but actually listening. That's like writing, she said. You can describe a place beautifully, but if you haven't been there, haven't felt it, the words are empty. I learned that the hard way in my early articles. I was writing what I thought people wanted to hear, not what was true. When did that change? He asked. My grandmother, actually, she said, her voice getting softer. She took me on a trip when I was 23. I just graduated, had this fancy degree, thought I knew everything. We went to this small town in Mexico, place called Real de Catorce, middle of nowhere, hours from anywhere. I was annoyed at first. I wanted to go somewhere famous, somewhere I could post impressive photos. She paused, looking out at the rain. But that place changed something in me. The way the light hit the old stone buildings at sunset. The way the locals told stories about their families who'd lived there for generations. The simplicity of their lives, but the richness of their connections. My grandmother didn't say much, just let me experience it. When we left, she said, See? The best stories aren't in the guidebooks. She was right. The taxi moved forward about 10 feet, then stopped again. The driver chuckled. We might be here till midnight at this rate. But I've got nowhere to be. My daughter keeps telling me to retire, but what would I do? Sit at home watching TV? This is where I meet interesting people, hear interesting stories. How long have you been driving? She asked him. 42 years this November, the driver said proudly. Started when I was 25. Needed money for my wedding. Thought it'd be temporary, but I loved it. Every person who gets in this car has a story. Some people tell me everything, some people say nothing, but everyone's going somewhere. Coming from somewhere. It's like being part of 1,000 different lives. He thought about that. His own life had felt so narrow lately. Home to work, work to home. The same routes, the same routine. When was the last time he'd actually talked to someone new? heard a different perspective. When was the last time he'd felt curious about anything? "That's beautiful," she said to the driver. "My grandmother was like that. She talked to everyone. On planes, in markets, at bus stops. She'd come home with these amazing stories about people she'd just met. She always said strangers are just friends you haven't talked to yet." "Smart woman," the driver said. "She was," she agreed, and he could hear the emotion in her voice. He wanted to comfort her somehow but didn't know how. Instead, he asked what was her favorite place? Out of everywhere she traveled? She smiled at that. She always said it wasn't about the place. It was about the moment. But if I had to choose, she talked about Paris a lot. Not the touristy Paris, but the real one. She lived there for a year in her 20s, rented a tiny room in the 6th arrondissement. She'd have coffee at the same cafe every morning, got to know the owner, the regulars, said it taught her that home isn't where you're from, it's where you feel like yourself. "I studied abroad in Barcelona for a semester," he said suddenly. "This was about 10 years ago. Best 6 months of my life. I felt like I could be anyone, do anything. No expectations, no one knowing my history. Just me in this beautiful city." Her eyes lit up. "When were you there?" "I was in Barcelona 10 years ago, too. I spent 3 months there researching an article." "Really? 2015? "Yes. Spring semester." They both laughed at the coincidence. "We might have walked past each other," she said. "Crossed paths and never knew." "Maybe we needed 10 more years before we were ready to actually meet," he said, surprised at his own words. She looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in the air between them. The driver caught it too, glanced in the rearview mirror with a knowing smile. The traffic started moving a bit faster now, not much, but enough that they could feel progress. She checked her phone again. "Still have about an hour and 15 minutes before boarding." "You'll make it," he assured her. "Yeah," she said, but she didn't sound relieved. She sounded almost disappointed. They talked more. About Barcelona, about the places they'd been, the places they wanted to go, about how life doesn't turn out how you plan it. He mentioned his divorce without going into details. She talked about a relationship that ended badly 2 years ago, how she'd thrown herself into work afterward, traveling constantly, never staying anywhere long enough to feel attached. "Are you running from something or toward something?" the driver asked her gently. She went quiet for a moment. "I don't know anymore. Both maybe. I took a new job in Portland. Starting next month. Thought a fresh start would help, but now I'm wondering if I'm just changing locations without changing anything that actually matters." "What would you change if you could?" he asked her. "I think I'd stop being so afraid," she said honestly. "Afraid of staying still. Afraid of letting people in. Afraid of wanting something and losing it." She laughed a little. "Sorry, that got deep fast." "No," he said. "I get it. I've been afraid too. Afraid to care about my work again because what if it fails? Afraid to meet new people because what if they leave? It's easier to just go through the motions. But that's not really living, is it?" she said quietly. "No," he agreed. "It's not." The city lights were streaming past faster now. The traffic had finally broken up and they were moving at a normal speed. The airport was getting closer with every minute. She kept glancing at her phone, checking the time, checking her boarding pass. He noticed she seemed tense now, not the relaxed way she'd been talking just minutes ago. "You're going to make it easily," he said, trying to reassure her. "I know," she said, but she didn't look happy about it. The driver caught his eye in the rearview mirror and gave him a look that seemed to say, "Well, what are you waiting for?" But what could he do? They'd had a nice conversation, a meaningful one even, but that's all it was. She was catching a flight. She was moving to Portland. She'd made it clear she wasn't looking for anything complicated. And honestly, neither was he, right? But something was nagging at him. That feeling you get when you know you're supposed to do something, but you're afraid to do it. He cleared his throat. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," she said. "Would it be weird if I asked for your email or something? I'd like to stay in touch. Maybe hear about Portland or your writing or just talk again." She bit her lip, looking conflicted. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Why not?" he asked, trying not to sound hurt. "Because," she said slowly, "I'm really bad at staying in touch with people. I get busy, distracted, and then months go by and I feel guilty for not responding, so I avoid it more. It's not personal, it's a pattern I have. Or," he suggested gently, Maybe you're protecting yourself, keeping people at arm's length so you don't have to risk anything. She looked at him sharply. You just met me. You don't know my patterns. You're right, he said. I'm sorry. That was presumptuous. They sat in silence for a moment. It was uncomfortable now, different from the easy quiet they'd had before. He'd pushed too hard, said too much. He stared out the window, mentally kicking himself. Then she spoke. No, you're right. That is what I do. I just didn't expect a stranger in a taxi to see it so clearly. The driver spoke up. Can I tell you both something? In my 42 years of driving this cab, you know what I've learned? People spend so much time being careful, being practical, protecting themselves. And sure, sometimes that's smart. But sometimes you meet someone and there's something there, something real. And if you let it drive away because it's complicated or the timing's not perfect, you spend years wondering what if. Is this about how you met your wife? She asked with a small smile. It is, actually, the driver said. She got in my cab one rainy night, kind of like tonight. She was crying because she'd just quit her job. She was supposed to fly home to her parents, give up on her dreams, play it safe. We talked the whole drive to the airport. Just talked. But something clicked. When we got there, I did something crazy. I asked if she wanted to get coffee instead of catching that flight. And she said yes? He asked. She said no, the driver laughed. Told me I was sweet, but she had to go. I gave her my number anyway. Told her if she ever came back to the city to call me. Figured I'd never hear from her again. But you did, she said. 3 days later, the driver said with a grin. She'd gotten home, talked to her parents, and realized she was running away from what she wanted. She came back, called me from the airport, and we went for that coffee. Married 6 months later. Had 40 years together before she passed. Best decision I ever made was taking that chance. Best decision she ever made was coming back. The airport exit was coming up. The driver put on his turn signal. She was staring at her hands, thinking hard about something. He wanted to say more, but didn't know what. Everything felt too big suddenly, too significant for a random taxi ride. The thing is, she said finally, I feel something here. In this car, talking to you, it's the first time in 2 years I've felt actually present with another person. Not performing, not being what I think I should be, just being me. And that scares me because we're almost at the airport and then this is over and I'll probably never see you again. His heart was beating faster. It doesn't have to be over. But I'm moving to Portland. You're here. We're strangers who shared a cab. This isn't how real connections work. Who says? He challenged. Why can't this be how it works? We talked more honestly in this hour than I've talked to anyone in months. That counts for something. It counts for something, she agreed. But wanting something and being able to actually make it work are two different things. The driver took the airport exit. Terminal signs started appearing. She had maybe 15 minutes before she needed to be at security. The pressure was building. He made a decision. Let me walk you to the terminal. We don't have to figure everything out right now, but let's not end this in a car. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. The driver pulled up to departures. He helped her get her suitcase out of the trunk. She tried to pay for half the ride, but he waved her money away. This one's on me, he said. The driver smiled at them both. You kids take care. And hey, sometimes the best things in life are the ones that don't make sense on paper. They walked into the terminal together, weaving through crowds of travelers. The airport was busy, everyone rushing somewhere. She kept checking the departure boards. Her gate was in the C terminal. Security would take at least 10 minutes, maybe more. I really do need to go, she said when they reached the security checkpoint. I know, he said. They stood there awkwardly, two people who'd shared something meaningful but didn't know what to do with it. People flowed around them, pulling suitcases, checking phones, living their lives. What do you want? She asked him suddenly. Not what's practical or what makes sense. What do you actually want? The question caught him off guard. I want to know what happens next. I want to hear about Portland and your grandmother's stories and your writing. I want to understand why Barcelona changed you. I want more time. That's a lot to want from someone you met an hour ago, she said, but she was smiling slightly. I know, but you asked what I wanted, not what was reasonable. She checked her watch. The final boarding call for her flight echoed through the terminal. I have to go, she said, and this time she meant it. He nodded, trying not to show his disappointment. Have a safe flight. She started to turn away, pulling her suitcase behind her. He watched her take 3 steps toward security. Then she stopped. Just stood there in the middle of the terminal, people walking around her, her hand frozen on her suitcase handle. He could see her shoulders rise and fall as she took a deep breath. She turned back around. She was walking back toward him, leaving her suitcase where it stood. People were giving her annoyed looks as they had to walk around it, but she didn't seem to notice. Her eyes were only on him. "Ask me something," she said when she reached him. "What?" He was confused. "Ask me something real. Not about logistics or plans. Something that matters. Because I need to know if what I'm feeling right now is real or if I'm just emotional because of the funeral and the rain and this weird, unexpected day." He thought for a second. "What do you dream about? Not career dreams or travel dreams. When you imagine yourself truly happy, what does that look like?" She didn't hesitate. "Small moments. Morning coffee that's just the right temperature. Conversations that last hours without feeling long. Someone who remembers the little things I say. A place that feels like home even if it's not where I grew up. Work that matters but doesn't consume me. Feeling like I belong somewhere to someone instead of always passing through." "That's a good dream," he said quietly. "What about you? What do you want for your future, not your past?" He'd been so focused on recovering from his divorce, on just getting through each day, that he hadn't let himself think about the future in a long time. "I want to care about my work again. I want to design buildings that change how people live, not just look impressive. I want to wake up excited about the day instead of just getting through it. I want to take risks again. And I want to be brave enough to see where this goes, whatever this is." The final boarding call announced again, more urgently this time. She glanced at the security line, then back at him. "I could take a later flight," she said slowly, like she was testing how the words sounded out loud. "There's one tomorrow morning." "That's crazy," he said, but he couldn't stop smiling. "I know," she said. "I'm a person who plans everything. I have spreadsheets for my travels. I don't do spontaneous. But right now, getting on that plane feels like the wrong choice. And my grandmother always said when something feels wrong, don't do it just because it's what you planned." "Are you sure?" he asked. "I don't want you to miss your flight because of something I said." "You're not making me do anything," she said firmly. "This is my choice, and maybe it's a stupid choice. Maybe tomorrow I'll regret it, but right now, standing here, I know I'll regret it more if I leave without knowing what this could be." He felt something loosen in his chest, something that had been tight for months. "So what do we do now?" She laughed, and it was the freest sound he'd heard from her all night. "I have no idea. I've never done this before. Stayed for a stranger, changed my plans for a feeling. Want to start with dinner?" he suggested. "Actual dinner, not airport food." "That sounds perfect," she said. They went back outside to find a taxi. And there, right at the curb, was the same driver who'd brought them here. He was parked in the taxi waiting area reading a newspaper. When he saw them coming, he rolled down his window with the biggest grin. "That was quick," he said. "Flight canceled?" "Something like that," she said, smiling. "Where to now?" The driver asked, clearly delighted. She looked at him. "Your choice. There's a diner about 20 minutes from here," he said. "It's open all night, has the best coffee in the city, and it's quiet. We can actually talk without shouting over airport announcements." "Sounds wonderful," she said. They got back in the taxi, but this time they sat closer. Not touching, but close enough that they could feel each other's presence. The driver pulled away from the airport back toward the city. The rain had finally stopped and the streets were shiny and clean-looking. "Your grandmother would be proud of you," he said quietly. "I think so too," she said. "She always told me that sometimes you have to trust your gut, even when your brain is screaming at you." "Especially then, actually. My brain is definitely screaming right now," he admitted, "telling me this is crazy, that we just met, that you're moving to Portland, that this can't possibly work." "And what's your gut saying?" she asked. He turned to look at her. "That this is the first thing that's felt right in a very long time." She smiled and for the first time reached over and took his hand. Just held it, simple as that. It felt natural, like something they'd been doing for years instead of minutes. The driver was humming along to the radio, giving them their moment. The city passed by outside, familiar streets looking different somehow. Everything looked different now. At the diner, they took a booth in the back corner. The place was nearly empty, just a few other late-night people scattered around. A waitress brought them coffee without asking, the kind of place where coffee was just assumed. They ordered food they barely touched, too busy talking. She told him about the book she wanted to write, about places that feel like home even when they're far away. He told her about his dream of creating community spaces, buildings designed around bringing people together rather than keeping them apart. They talked about fear and courage, about the divorce and the breakup, about feeling lost and finding direction. Hours passed without them noticing. The coffee kept coming. Other customers came and went. The waitress started cleaning up around them, getting ready for the morning shift, but she didn't rush them. Around 5 in the morning, they finally left the diner. The sun was starting to think about rising, that dark blue pre-dawn light making everything look soft and possible. The driver was still there, waiting for them. He'd gone home for a bit, but came back like he knew they'd need him. "One more ride?" he asked. "One more ride," she agreed. They drove along the river as the sun came up, neither of them saying much. Some moments don't need words. The city was waking up slowly. Early joggers on the paths, delivery trucks making their rounds, the world getting ready for another day. He had no idea what happened next. She still had a flight in a few hours. She was still moving to Portland. He still had his life here, his work, his obligations. Nothing practical had changed, but everything had changed anyway. The taxi rolled slowly along the riverside, none of them in a hurry anymore. The morning light was soft, making the water look almost silver. She was leaning against him now, her head on his shoulder, both of them tired but not wanting to sleep. "I should probably get to my hotel," she said finally. "Change clothes, think about that morning flight." "Probably," he agreed, but neither of them moved. The driver glanced at them in the mirror. "You know, my wife missed her flight that night too. Not intentionally, we just talked so long at that coffee shop that by the time we noticed it was too late. She had to explain to her parents why she didn't come home. They thought she was being irresponsible." "What did she tell them?" she asked. "The truth. That she'd met someone and needed more time to figure out what it meant. They didn't understand at first. But 40 years later, at our anniversary party, her father told me he was glad she missed that flight." They pulled up to a small hotel downtown. She'd stayed here the last few nights, close to where the funeral had been. It looked like a nice place, old but well kept, with window boxes that would probably have flowers in them during better weather. "So," she said, turning to face him, "what are we doing here, really?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "I think we're taking a chance on something that doesn't make sense but feels right anyway." "I'm still moving to Portland," she said. "The job starts in 3 weeks. I signed a lease." "I know. And you're here with your work and your life." "I know that too." "So this is complicated," she said. "Very," he agreed. "But maybe complicated is okay. Maybe we don't have to figure it all out right now. Maybe we just need to agree that this is worth exploring, whatever this is." She was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said, "I catch my flight at 10. That gives us about 4 hours. Can I take you somewhere?" "Anywhere," he said. She gave the driver an address, an old neighborhood on the east side. As they drove, she explained, "My grandmother lived here for 30 years before she moved to be closer to family. There's a little park she loved, nothing special, just a neighborhood place. But she had me spread some of her ashes there before the funeral. She wanted to stay in the city she loved." They arrived as the sun was fully up now, morning light touching everything. The park was small, like she said, just some benches and old trees and a path that circled around. But it was peaceful, the kind of place that felt separate from the rush of the city. They walked the path together, their hands linked now like it was the most natural thing. She showed him the tree where she'd scattered the ashes, an old oak that had probably been there 50 years or more. "She used to bring me here when I'd visit," she said. "We'd sit on that bench and she'd tell me about the people she'd seen here over the years. The couple who came every morning with their dog, the old man who did Tai Chi at sunrise, the teenagers who thought they were being sneaky smoking behind the trees. She loved watching people live their lives. She sounds like someone I would have liked to meet," he said. "She would have liked you," she said with certainty. She always said the best people are the ones who actually listen, not just wait to talk. "You listen." They sat on the bench her grandmother loved. Birds were starting to sing, welcoming the day. A jogger passed by, gave them a friendly nod. The world was going on around them, indifferent to their small moment, but that made it feel even more precious somehow. "I'm scared," she admitted. "This feeling, it's big. Too big for one night in a taxi and a few hours at a diner." "I'm scared too," he said. I'm scared you'll get on that plane and I'll never hear from you again. I'm scared this is just a moment and not the start of something. But I'm more scared of not trying. What would trying look like? She asked. Honest communication, he said. Not pretending it's easy or simple because it's not. Not making promises we can't keep. Just staying in touch, actually staying in touch and seeing where it goes. I could visit Portland. You'll probably have to come back here sometimes. We figure it out as we go. What if it doesn't work? She said quietly. What if it does? He countered. She leaned against him again and they sat there as the park came to life around them. A woman arrived with 2 small kids who immediately ran for the playground. The Tai Chi man she'd mentioned appeared, spreading out his mat under a tree. Life, normal and beautiful and ongoing. My flight board's in 3 hours, she said finally. I should go, get ready, pack my things. Okay, he said, though his heart sank a little. They stood up to leave. As they walked back toward where the driver was waiting, she stopped suddenly and turned to him. Come with me to the airport. All the way to the gate this time. Are you sure? He asked. I'm not sure about anything, she said. But I know I'm not ready to say goodbye in this park. I need a little more time. Back in the taxi, the driver smiled at them like a proud parent. Airport, he asked. Airport, she confirmed. But slowly. Take the long way. He laughed. I can do that. They drove through the city at a leisurely pace, seeing it wake up fully. Coffee shops opening their doors. People heading to work. Delivery trucks double-parked while drivers ran packages inside. Regular life, beautiful in its regularity. This is weird, right? She said, but she was smiling. We're basically strangers, but it doesn't feel that way. We know each other better than a lot of people who've known each other for years, he said. We skipped the small talk phase. True, I don't even know what kind of music you like. Good point. I'm a jazz person. Old school, the stuff the driver was playing. I like folk music, she said. Singer-songwriter stuff where you can hear every word. See? Completely incompatible, he joked. Guess we'll have to take turns, she said. And there was something about the way she said it, like she was talking about years from now, not just a hypothetical. At the airport, he paid the driver, insisting on covering everything. The driver shook both their hands. This has been one of my favorite rides in 42 years, he said. Whatever you two decide, I hope you choose bravely. Thank you, she said, hugging him. For everything. The ride, the story, the advice. Just paying forward what someone did for me once, he said, waving away her thanks. This time they walked through the airport not rushed but purposefully. She checked in, got her boarding pass, and they headed for security. They had about